Lida Steeder was born on May 25, 1886, and was the youngest of three children. She graduated from Valentine High School at the age of 15 and attended the University of Nebraska, where she met Harry L. Hollingworth. As a young woman, she aspired to be a writer. She studied literature and writing at the University of Nebraska. Harry Hollingworth and Lida Steeder married in New York City on December 31, 1908. The position of women during her time was limited to the private sphere. She found that married women were not allowed to teach, and many doors to scholarships were closed for her. As she tried to deal with her forced position in society, she began to ponder the woman question, which looked at the inequities of opportunities for women in society. Her husband, Harry Hollingworth, was hired by Coca-Cola to study the effects of caffeine on individuals. He assigned Lida as the director of the study, which was well designed and helped the company prove that caffeine was not harmful. However, Harry Hollingworth felt it did keep him up at night and was paid a sizable stipend from Coca-Cola, which was used to fund Lida's graduate degree. Because of the inequities she had to face being a woman, it played a large influence on her early work. Her husband, Harry Hollingworth, stated, "Everywhere she observed barriers, overt or tacit, between women and such goals, and the philosophy of the situation aroused her not only to vigorous resistance, but to active inquiry." In Hollingworth's master thesis, completed in 1913, she challenged the essential principle behind sexist hiring practices, the alleged incapacitation of women each month due to menstruation. She credits Edward Thorndike in her study, who supervised her work and aided her with advice on matters of general and statistical treatment. The thesis was a work in progress that she expanded for her dissertation and completed 2 years before she obtained her doctoral degree. It was titled Functional Periodicity, an experimental study of the mental and motor abilities of women during menstruation, and will be the focus of this video. There were common myths in the early 19th century which argued against the position of women in public spheres like education. Menstruation was considered an object of superstition and taboo, even among the most prominent individuals. Many argued against the education of women, stating physiological reasons as their premise. Henry Maudsley stated, "This is a matter of physiology, not a matter of sentiment, not a question of two bodies and minds that are in equal physical conditions, but of one body and mind capable of sustained and regular labor, and of another body and mind which for 1/4 of each month during the best years of life is more or less sick and unfit for hard work." Lida Hollingworth responded to these ideas with a study of her own. She took the assumption that women were unable to work because they got their menstrual cycle and refuted it through the science of the day. In regards to her thesis, she stated, "The present study represents an effort to treat objectively this phenomenon concerning which such a remarkable variety of folklore and superstition has survived among civilized peoples from the days of savagery and magic." Not only did this study place her on the map as one of the prominent feminists in psychology, but there was a need for this study to take place, as it disproved the negative beliefs towards women of that day. There were 8 subjects, 6 of whom were women and 2 were men. The men took the tests exactly the same way as the women subjects, acting as a control. She used tests which were previously used by psychologists. 2 motor tests, 2 mental tests, and a measure of fatigability were selected. The tapping test and the steadiness test demonstrated motor ability. In regards to the tapping test, Hollingworth quotes G. Stanley Hall, who stated, "The greatest number of taps that can be made in a given brief time interval is an important determination for accessory muscle control." The 2 mental tests were color naming and saying opposites. The color naming test was conducted as follows. A card was placed face downward at each trial. Before the subject, at a signal from the operator, the subject turned the card over and began naming the colors as rapidly as possible from left to right. In the opposites test, a list of 50 words were used. These words were written on a card in 2 vertical columns. This card was laid face downward before the subject at each trial, and at a given signal from the operator, the subject turned it over and went through the list as rapidly as possible, naming the opposites to each word in order. After these tests were done, the results of the study were: careful and exact measurement did not reveal a periodic mental or motor inefficiency in normal women. Furthermore, the variability of performance was not affected by physiological periodicity. Overall, she concluded that it was astonishing how little support was found in these results for the statements made by individuals against the education and employment of women. She further went on to state that the socialization process of women and the way they were depicted by romantic novelists was especially harmful in the negative stereotypes about women. Hollingworth was a strong force in the development of women in the public sphere. She took scientific concepts and used them to refute many of the prejudices faced by women during her time. Leda Steiner Hollingworth died in 1939. Her contributions to the field of psychology were extremely influential. She published many works on women and education, transforming the field throughout her existence.